This podcast is brought to you by the Center for Educational Innovation. Since 1989, the CEI has helped shift school systems towards authentic, from the ground up improvement, turning under-resourced schools into engines of opportunity and impact. TeacherGuard thanks you for your proud sponsorship and support.
Teaching is hard, and oftentimes it isn't what happens in the classroom that makes the job difficult. It's what happens before and after school, during passing periods, at lunch, in meetings, or in our lives outside of school that challenges our ability to stick with the profession. TeacherGuard is committed to focusing on making teaching sustainable and enjoyable. We want to make the rewards of the profession seem more attainable and the challenges more bearable. Our mentorship model pairs teachers with consistent daily support from a peer educator. Through TeacherGuard's 4 sustainability principles, we will walk the challenging times with you and allow you to enjoy the wins and celebrations that come with this beautiful profession. See teacherguard.net for more information and to explore how you can join our community of educators today. We hope you enjoy today's podcast. All right, welcome back. Very excited for the guest who is joining us today. We are very lucky to have Kylie Bertram on with us. I've known Kylie for... It's 2026, so we met in 2015, 11 years.
Okay.
And as I say that, it's crazy to think how quickly time has flown, because I feel like I just met you yesterday. So, welcome to the podcast. I want to start off just by giving you the space to introduce yourself. Tell us what you do. What were you doing 11 years ago, and how did you get to where you are today?
Yeah, it's been a lot has happened since I met you 11 years ago. So that was my first year teaching. I taught my first year in Montgomery County in a middle school. I taught 7th grade science. I had an incredible mentor my first year teaching. My PLC partner was a national board certified teacher, and he was just, more than that, he was just a great mentor. He was always there for me, helped me out with absolutely anything. And I only got 1 year under his wing. I ended up moving to Washington State, and I taught at a charter school my first year in Washington State. That was a tough year. It was a brand new charter. We were starting up a program. We did not have the resource that we needed to serve our students. So all year, it was a big struggle. Like, what are we going to do to support these kids? What are we going to do to make changes to this program to make sure that this is working? After that year, I ended up with an opportunity to move back to a traditional public school in Federal Way, Washington. I took that opportunity because I would be back working with other teachers in collaboration, and I needed that for myself. So ended up with one of my favorite groups of teachers that I've ever worked with. I was there for the rest of my time in Washington State, and then I had to move to Texas to follow my Army spouse. In Texas, I worked at Killeen High School. It's in Central Texas, like an hour outside of Austin. Near Fort Hood, which has also been called Fort Cavazos. And I was a department chair at that time at that school. And then I went out on maternity leave after COVID and did not go back to teaching in Texas in person. Instead, I ended up teaching virtually. So I found a school called ASU Prep Digital and ended up getting hired for a new program that they were starting up called ASU Prep Global. I worked online teaching lots of different science courses up until this past year when we moved back to Maryland, and because we were going to put down roots, I got to be back in the classroom with kids. So I am now at Blake High School in Silver Spring, Maryland.
You've done an entire loop around the country in the past 11 years.
Yes.
That's awesome. And I mean, with that loop, you've experienced teaching in multiple different ways through multiple different time periods and challenges that have surfaced over the past decade. And so given that wealth of experience and thinking about the challenges that you faced early on and maybe some of the challenges that you face now as a veteran teacher, when thinking about teacher sustainability, what would you say, either for you or for other folks you've seen, is a factor or two that challenge sustainability and the ability for teachers to remain in the profession, especially early on in their career?
For me, it's absolutely collaboration. I need people around me to toss ideas, to talk about like, hey, what do you think like might be going on with this lesson? Or like, what could we do to teach this topic? Or how could we better engage our kids, these kids that are in our room right now? Not like some like general kid.
Mm-hmm.
How do I engage Reese and make her come to class? How do I engage Devon and get him to show up to school on time because he wants to be in biology?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want to be working with other teachers on those things. So schools where I've had that have been so much more sustainable for me and for my practice. I've also had experiences where I've been able to collaborate with people who are not in my school, and that has also been really helpful to get an outside perspective. So that's happened a lot through Knowles and groups of teachers, but it's also kind of happened like authentically because I've moved from school to school, and I will reach out to people that I used to work with and say like, hey, what do you think about this thing? Or I'm stuck on this problem. Can you help me think about it?
Have you encountered at any placement in which you've been situations in which you didn't have that, or where maybe that community was not as strong as you would have liked?
Yes. The year that I taught in the charter school, it just was so small. It was the very first year. They only had one like initiating group of teachers. So we worked together closely, but we all taught different subjects. So everything content-wise was on my own. And the science classroom was actually in the basement of the school. And I was in the basement by myself.
Oh my gosh.
So I spent all day in the basement by myself with no one else. I ended up advocating with the principal to be a floater in the upper level of the school instead, just so that I didn't have to be down there alone.
Let you leave the basement?
Get me out of the basement. I can't be down here by myself all day.
Gosh, that's crazy.
It was crazy. I did find like a unique collaborative relationship actually with the special education teacher that year. So I ended up finding someone who wanted to help me, and we actually ended up doing some of my best work on like accommodating and modifying tasks. And I think that was actually ended up really being foundational for the skill set that I have now, being able to modify and adjust tasks for the kids who are in front of me and kids who are at different levels in my classroom. But I learned that from working with her. And that collaboration might not have happened had I had other science teachers in the building to go to. So I think even in the situations where I've not had very good communities, I've kind of been able to seek some things out. But in the end, I did end up leaving that school for a more collaborative situation.
Do you think staying in that environment might have made you consider, instead of leaving the school, potentially leaving the profession, if you didn't find that the circumstances there changed?
Yeah, I was worried. That school especially, I was concerned about sustainability. Other people who worked for that same charter also were having lots of conversations about a lack of sustainability working for that school system. So it was a big concern for me. And it's one of the reasons that I did make the jump and switch back to a more traditional public school. I was not sure that that school was a good fit, and I wasn't sure that I was doing the best job that I could be doing for kids. And that never feels like I'm here to serve kids and their families. And if I feel like I'm not doing a good job of that, then maybe I'm not in the right place.
That self-awareness is a quality that I admire because I don't think I had, nor do I have that to the degree that I would like to have it right now. I'm thinking early in my career, I was so afraid of making mistakes and having my peers or my supervisors see or witness those mistakes, whether it was during instructional delivery or whether it was, submitting a lesson plan. So it's not that I didn't like collaboration. I was just afraid that it would expose me. And so it took me years to figure out you trying to perfect everything in your classroom on your own year after year is going to make you not like this profession for very long. Because ultimately, years of moments where you learn from failure or from wins, getting those validated matters too. Uh, I have not been self-aware of the value that that brings, and I'm just curious about is that natural to you? Is that something that you worked on to realize that that is something that you need in order to want to stay teaching?
Listening to you have that like point of reflection, I am the same way. Don't catch me failing. We only win. We only achieve fours on our evaluation. Like
Right.
whatever the highest number is, that's what I am. If I'm not meeting that, like it's going to be a problem for me personally, even though I know that that's ridiculous.
Hmm.
You can't meet every one of those standards every time someone walks into your room. It's not going to happen. I know that.
Right.
But when you're being evaluated, you're like, but I can do it, but I can do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've never thought about collaboration from that lens.
Mm.
I think about those moments with other teachers as like ways that I can get there. But it was when you were talking about that, it made me realize like, is that because of my first year with Greg?
Mm.
Because I knew I had a lot to learn. I was a first year teacher. I needed to ask him all kinds of things. And we were set up to PLC. We had a shared planning period. We were required to meet together. And he wanted to mentor me. He was in my interview, and it was part of why I took the job, because he was actually interested in mentoring me. So I think, and it was just the two of us that worked together. So I think because I walked into that first ever collaborative job with the mindset of he's a mentor for me and he's a coach for me, I never have since viewed collaborating with my peers or with my PLC as like they won't think I'm good at this.
It's like you viewed it as it's a place for me to gain something, for me to learn something or take something from other people.
Yeah, it's a
Um,
place for me to take risks.
yeah. Yeah, well, and it's interesting because I've always been told that I'm a good listener, right? Like
Are.
quiet, don't speak up. And you've known me, from working in group settings together for 5 years. Um, I speak up very often. So the irony of me starting a podcast is hilarious. But the reason why I listen so much is that it takes no, I feel like I'm not taking a risk when I listen, right? I can listen all day. I can take things and learn from them. I can maybe make someone feel heard without necessarily having to even say anything, who just wants to
Right.
listen, who just wants to speak. The minute that I have to speak up is when I feel like, okay, here I go taking a risk. Hopefully people don't think that was dumb. Hopefully people don't think I wasted their time. Hopefully people don't think I'm rambling. All thoughts that probably at some point I thought of other people as they've spoken up like trying to not be the person that I maybe didn't enjoy listening to. And again, when I think back to new teachers, there are folks who are very vocal, very willing to express what they need, and there are folks who are not. And I think I fall into that latter category, and probably at many points in my career was at risk of just leaving education because of it. Um, and I always admired, thinking back to dynamics where you and I worked together, I feel like you put yourself out there for everything. And I could tell, man, she just wants to learn, right? She wants to listen. And it's so interesting how I can admire the quality in someone else, and yet I couldn't embrace it for myself, right?
Right.
Like, oh, I'm glad Kylie does that. That works great for her. But that would work great for everybody, in teaching. And so I'm curious about that. If you've maybe seen it in other colleagues, are there qualities that you feel make them successful at staying in the profession that you're like, man, I wish I had that? Or the opposite? Are there qualities that you think, man, that might be risky, that might not work out long term?
This is so interesting that we're having this conversation because it's bringing up so many reflections for me when you were talking about like maybe I didn't like seeing that in other people. And the thing that I think bothers me the most when I work with other professionals ever, and not just teachers, the people who come off like they know everything and they're doing everything perfectly bother me the most. Like, what are we doing in life if you're not taking every opportunity to learn and improve? We're clearly not doing everything right on planet Earth.
Right.
Like, clearly we can make improvements
Hmm.
in lots of ways. No human is perfect. So I think part of like that's like my stance is like what am I, it's such a waste of my time if I can't learn anything. If I'm not going to take anything away from this, then what am I doing with my life? What am I doing with my time? How am I supporting my students? But I think I've also worked with colleagues who are huge risk takers and very confident about it. I worked with a teacher in Federal Way who I still will work with to this day. I'll call her and be like, Christine Ha, what do you think about blah, blah, blah? What are your ideas? She's not even in the classroom right now. Then I'll call her and I'll be like, what do you think about this thing? What are your ideas on this? I need you to talk this through with me. And it's because she is so vocal about her approach to teaching that she's always like, yeah, I'm a terrible teacher. Like, I leave school and I go home and watch TV and sit on the couch and do nothing. And then she'll talk about how like, oh, I have so much to learn because I'm bad at this. And then you watch her in the classroom and you're like, but are you? Because you do magic things with kids in here. But she takes big risks. She takes big risks. So anytime I brought anything up, it felt like not a big deal because she would just say whatever was on her mind to the point that sometimes people were like, what?
Yeah. Well, and I've run into a few people like that, and it's almost like they are overcompensating for, um, maybe overcompensating is not the right word, but I think that I don't know if they genuinely don't recognize that they do amazing things, or if they do, but they also are of the mindset I get annoyed when people speak up without, unsolicited. And so as a result, I'd rather underpromise, say that I leave work early, say that I don't care, this or that, and then over deliver when people casually stroll by my class and I do something amazing, right? Versus what I think the majority of people do. Me included, I think we all do it at times. We overpromise and then oftentimes we underdeliver, right?
Exactly. And that's so stressful.
Yeah,
Nobody wants to do that.
right. Yeah, and I think I'm thinking of new teachers. I feel like you get out of your credentialing program, you're going into your first teaching job. You are concerned about longevity because the newer teachers are the ones who are at highest risk of not being asked to return next year.
Right.
And so as a result, it's almost like you're conditioned to either you have to be perfect,
Right.
uh, or you're not going to have a job next year. And it's not even about like you may go somewhere else and have a job, but that's also a draining lifestyle to bounce around from school to school early on in the career and not build community.
Exactly. That's part of why I ended up going to a virtual school. I was so burnt out from the whiplash of going from one school to another, one state to another. I just needed something to give me some kind of a consistency.
Mm-hmm.
I lived in 3 different states while I worked online. I made 3 moves. Four. I made 4 moves during that time. I only worked for them for 3 years.
That's crazy.
So that, you crave some consistency, but new teachers need a safe place to take risk and get support. And they don't always feel that within their school building.
Mm-hmm.
That's not always set up for new teachers. And I think that's shows in how many new teachers leave the profession.
Yeah. Well, and I think it speaks to what professional development is out there, right? And it's tough for a new teacher to be trying to learn the ropes at your new job, teaching content for the first time, dealing with classroom management, everything that comes with being a new teacher. And then, oh, by the way, if you need more support that the school's not offering you, you got to find it on your own,
And
right?
pay for it on your own.
And pay for it on your own, right? So the money that you already don't have because you're not getting paid a lot as a new teacher,
Right.
if you want something that'll keep you teaching, good luck finding it and paying for it. Uh, it's one, I think, of the few professions that is most needed, and yet I've had other folks on the podcast talk about how it's not treated to the same degree of professionalism as others
Right.
are, right? Like imagine if you threw a doctor into their first year and said, "All right, well, good luck," you know?
Hope you're great at this.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And you can become a teacher on an emergency certification where you're not even going through a teacher prep program. My teacher prep program was 1 year. How long are doctors going to school for? And then people look at you like, oh, well, anyone can be a teacher. You just, you
Yeah.
just do it.
Well, and I think that statement is true. Anyone can be a teacher. Not anyone can be a good teacher, and not anyone can be a sustainable long-term teacher. And that I think is the biggest difference between the barrier to entry, which is very low in many states, if not all states across the country, and then the attrition rate. Uh, because if it wasn't for some of the communities that maybe you and I had early on in our careers, it's tempting to look at other professions that pay you more for probably less stress, right? And what other profession do you deal with 180 personalities every day and your goal is to make them learn something that they don't care about?
They don't need it.
Yeah. That I mean, there's just nothing that's comparable, right? And so I don't think it's a surprise why people leave the profession, but I also think that one of the reasons why Teacher Guard exists, one of the reasons why we're spending our evening talking right now about the importance of this is that there is work to be done and there is opportunity to keep good teachers in the classroom. And I was talking to someone recently and I was telling them, the people that are going into being teachers right now were my middle school students during my student teacher year.
Right.
And that is crazy. They have learned everything in a completely different way. The challenges that they are facing are different than what I faced.
Right.
Uh,
They did at least some of their schooling during COVID.
that too, yeah, probably some of the most crucial part of their schooling. And so I'm just wondering, going into this next wave of new teachers over the next 5, 10 years, Do you anticipate that they're going to face similar challenges to what you and I faced early on in their careers, um, but to a different degree, perhaps?
I am absolutely concerned about that because I still don't feel like we support new teachers the way that we should. When someone talks about me being a veteran teacher, sometimes I'm like, who do you think I am? Why do you think that? I've been national board certified since 2018.
That's
That's crazy.
crazy. Wow.
I know that other people would not look at my resume and say, oh, she's a new teacher. But in my brain, that's where I still live.
Yep.
That's where I still live. So these new baby teachers that are coming in who have lived through COVID as a student, who are growing up and being educated in AI, like they were raised on tech. They have a different view of school and schooling than even we do, and we're not that much older than they are. I think that it's going to be super important for quote unquote veteran teachers to really think about what we can learn from new teachers. Like, I think that is one of our most powerful tools in sustainability and keeping teachers in the profession. Like, hey, new teacher, what ideas do you have for this?
Mm-hmm.
And not just being like, hey, I can help you with that. I can give you the answers.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah.
You tell me, and then we'll talk about it.
Did you have the moment yet where it hit you that you look around at your workplace and all of a sudden you're not the youngest person there or one of the youngest people there? Because that happened to me a few years ago. I had a really hard time dealing with that.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. The teacher across the hall from me, so we chat when the bell rings. So she is not even like a new baby teacher. She's been teaching for I think 5 years. But that makes her many years younger.
Yeah.
And the other day she was like, "Oh yeah, I went to a comedy show last night." And I was like, "Wait, what time did you go to bed? How are you here right now? You didn't take a day off today?" She's like, "Yeah, I have events every night this week." And I'm,
That's
what?
crazy.
But she also has the coolest ideas. We don't teach the same subject, and I've gotten so many cool ideas from her this year, just from our 5 minutes in between classes in the hallway that we get.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the people that have been in our classrooms for the past 5 years or so, that are now going into finishing up college and potentially becoming teachers, I I've heard them referred to as like the shortcut generation, right? The people that can find quick ways to do things, hacks and so forth. And while oftentimes that can be seen as a negative, I think there is a wealth of opportunity there that can be tapped into, right? What are some shorter, more creative ways of engaging uh, the 14 to 18-year-olds right now that you may know because you were 14 to 18-year-olds 5 years ago? And I remember going in interviews when I was a young teacher, and that was like one of my selling points, right? Like I'm not that much older than the kids, and I can relate to them and stuff like that. And that still holds true for new teachers today. They can relate to some of these kids, and so I think that there are a lot of things to learn from this new generation, whereas they can also learn from some of the boring stuff that we may have to share, like communication principles and sustainability and taking healthy risks, stuff that we've spoken about today. Uh, and it's just a matter of who's going to structure that. Are our administrators or our sites going to provide the opportunity for that kind of dialogue, that kind of collaboration to exist? Because I am really optimistic, as challenging as this time is for education, I really am optimistic for what education can look like in the near future.
Me too.
I heard I had another guest on a podcast, speak about how COVID gave us an opportunity to kind of change the way we do things, and he was very disappointed that in a lot of ways we've kind of just bounced back to
Rooted.
doing, yeah, to
Introverted.
doing things the way that like you could blink your eyes and it's 2019, right? And if
Yes.
you look at our schools, it didn't change very much. And I think that that is something that will always be there, that tug of war between the innovation that's coming and yet the system's kind of reluctance to change.
Right.
But I do think over time, the folks in the field of education who are starting to populate it and will become the majority are going to make some radical changes. So I'm excited to see what's to come. And I'm really curious if 10 years have flown by, 11 years since you and I met and started doing some of this work,
I
the
know.
next 10 or 11 are going to fly by just as quickly. And we'll be talking about, like, wow, what a world we're retiring from
Right.
at some point.
I think that's one of the coolest things, though, because thinking about in 20 years, the sorry, in 10 years, gosh, even in just, I mean, the technology and the things that we have and the way that the world has changed, it's so different today compared to when we started. I think teaching will still feel new
Yeah,
then. I think it's one of the hardest things about our job, but it's also one of the most exciting.
yeah. And it speaks to the fundamental point in teaching that it is not necessarily strictly about the content that you teach. The reason why there will still be elements of education that are the same from day one when you and I started to day whatever when we retire is because what matters most is the skills, the ability to do difficult things that we teach in our students, the ability to be on time, to complete tasks, to do what you say you're going to do. Those are all traits that will never, that might be a bold statement, but that will never not be valued by our society. So I'm excited to see what's coming. I think that it's wonderful to know that we're a part of it, and really happy that we got a chance to discuss this today. I like to wrap up every one of these episodes by asking whoever's joining me, if you were in a room with a newish teacher and they're telling you that they're thinking of leaving the profession at the end of this year, and you only had one or two sentences to share with them, what would you say?
Why are you leaving and what are you looking for? I would want them to talk.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, I'm not gonna, what are you looking for? It might be that you need a new school. It might not be that you need to leave education. Don't be afraid to find the right place. I guess that would be it. Don't be afraid to find the right place.
Yeah. Yeah, and really think about why is it that I'm feeling this way, right? Might it be a momentary thing that is leading me to make a permanent decision?
Right.
So, Kylie, thank you so much for joining me. Great to touch base with you. And we'll definitely have to have you back on again before we retire.
Before we retire. Thank you so much, Adam. It was great to talk with you.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed it and found it helpful to your teaching journey, please don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube or through your favorite podcast platform. We also appreciate any and all reviews or comments you leave. Thank you for joining us today and tune in next week for our next episode.